Alice doing?
We are doing great. Everything is back to normal.
Dad, who is this weird guy?
That's my patient, darling.
Who doesn't really want to be here because his issues stem from high school.
Everyone's issues stem from high school, Dan.
I remember the first day, all of us just being really excited to be back and having this sort of, this new perspective of how good the show could be, because we hadn't seen it in season 1, but now we had the benefit of having seen it. And there had also been this big gap because of the writer's strike. And so we were all really hungry to make something great. My last day was actually, without giving too much away, a scene in the finale where both Harrison and I give some big and significant speeches. And I remember sitting watching Harrison act just in awe, thinking about how lucky I am to be a part of this show.
First day was actually from episode 3 with Lukita, who plays Alice, and Zack Braff was directing, and I was very nervous because no one knew how I was going to do this part. And everyone was there, and all the writers came to be supportive, but I also think to check out if it was going to work. So I think I felt a lot of pressure and was worried. And then we did a rehearsal, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to be fine." So I was like, "Oh, thank God." And then I had my scene with Lukita, who plays Alice, and she was so wonderful and so great. And Zack was such a kind of, you know, you've seen some of it, right? Like, these aren't, the scenes I'm in are not the most fun scenes. So there's a real different sort of atmosphere in that. I think shrinking set is usually a lot of laughter, a lot of noise. But in that scene, it was quite quiet and focused. And Zack was very sensitive to us and keeping it kind of contained. So that was very lovely. And then my last day was, I think, I can't spoil what the scene was, but it was very moving. and I was sad, you know, it'd been a, you know, it's not the most fun part to play, but I think it had been very like creatively interesting and everyone was lovely. I hadn't worked with this crew, you know, as an actor, and it's such a great fucking crew. So I was sad on the last day, sad to say goodbye to everyone, but it was, yeah, it was good.
First day, everyone was really excited. We had a writer's strike here, and so we were supposed to start work, you know, 8 months before we did, and everyone was excited to be there, and we all became friends. We had seen each other in the off period, but it was exciting to get back to work, and so everyone came in with like an incredible amount of energy. The last night that we shot in season 2 was a really fun night. We're all out, and my daughter came by with her friends, and we were playing music, and everyone was dancing, and it was, I might have had a tequila after I did my lines, and it was a good time.
My first day of filming season 2 was actually the scene where we're hiking, when Gaby and Liz and Brian are hiking, and Gaby and Liz reveal to Brian that Gaby has been sleeping with Jimmy, and then I freak out and I scream on top of the mountain. That was my first scene of season 2. And it was a really fun way to come back to work because I love all of our hiking scenes. They're always really fun to do. It's always fun to be out on the trail, on an actual mountain hiking with the whole crew and everything. But I got to freak out and scream at the world. And we did it many times, and I got to scream a lot, and I got a lot of anxiety out of my system, and it was just really nice to be back. And then the last day of shooting, I can't tell you what happens on the last day of shooting. I don't want to spoil it, but they do a beautiful job of making sure the last scene has as many cast members as possible so that we're all together to celebrate. the end of the show. And so it was a scene where a lot of us were together, and it was a celebratory scene, and the whole crew and a lot of background actors, and it sort of becomes a party, and it's really nice.
There's one scene that comes towards the end of the season as Jimmy is trying to repair his relationship with Alice, where I just really had to be good in this scene. And I really had to be honest, and I really had to not use any of my acting tricks, because you accumulate all sorts of tricks as you're going along, and a lot of times like, oh, I know this moment. I'll do the old number 23 that I did in How I Met Your Mother, or, you know. And this was a moment that needed to be really authentic and real, and so I think that was the most challenging or nerve-wracking, because building up to it, I was just aware that the only way I was ever going to be happy when I watched it is if I was really honest, is if we like captured something on screen, which is like what I'm obsessed with. I can tell when I'm watching something and it happened, and I can tell when I'm doing it, when you catch something. And I think we did. And the most kind of, the very last scene of the finale of this season is the most meaningful to me of the whole year, which you'll see when it airs. But what a journey this season is in forgiveness, and to see that come to its culmination in the finale was a really special thing to play.
Is in episode 6, the scene with me and Alice and Brian. That was a very I felt a lot of pressure to get that scene right, because it's a very important scene. It's kind of the midpoint of the season, and it's this huge confrontation between Lewis and Alice, and that was a very special day on set. Like a real, everyone leaning in, everyone really focused, and Lukita's so wonderful in that scene, I think, and I think we were both. There's a lot of build up to doing that scene. It's like the climax of their story, and it was really wonderful. I hate to sound sincere, but it was very special that day, and I think I'm like really pleased how it came out. It's nice when watching it feels like how it was to do it. You know what I mean? Like on the day it felt special, and I think it works, hopefully. And I also think that that's an interesting scene from a writing point of view of like, what is a good apology? Like, we talk about this a lot in the current age of like, that was a bad apology. That's not a real apology. It's like, how do you apologize for this most horrendous thing, you know, and what are the correct words for it? And I think when Alice forgives him, it surprises her and it surprises him. And I think that's really beautiful, and it's to do with her soul. She's like an angel in that way, you know. She can't help herself but feel this relief from it as well. Like, it sets her free. I think that's I mean, it is also a comedy, but you know, I think that scene, we allowed it to not be that funny for a minute.
I think of it, the scene that I'm in the bathtub, and I'm on the phone, and it was maybe because the bathtub was so relaxing. It was like all these bubbles and the water was really warm. I just felt really relaxed, and I had fun with the scene, even though it's kind of an emotional scene. And I remember thinking, oh, this is like a good lesson to take away, to have this, you know, to be so relaxed and in work as well. You know, it was all over the place for me this season. Some days were really intense, and I would get home and I couldn't even speak, and but it felt good. And then some days I'm like, oh, today is, you know, joke day.
I have a scene, a long argument scene with Jimmy where I end up slapping him in the face. That was both fun and challenging because, well, you don't get scenes that are that long on television very often. Scenes that are just two people talking for that long of a time, and with high stakes and big arguments. And I always love doing scenes with Jason Segel. I think he is a complete master at his craft. And so to get to do a scene like that with him was really a challenge and an honor and a lot of fun. But I've also been given the gift this year of this extremely long monologue. I think it's in episode 6, where I've been holding a secret in and I finally get to say it. I'm sort of forced to say it to Alice, Lukita Maxwell's character. And not only was I so delighted to get stuff one-on-one with her, because I think she's such an incredible actor, and we didn't really have anything together in season 1. So I was so happy to have a storyline with her, but also to get a monologue. A big several-page monologue in television. That doesn't happen. I mean, it happens if you're like a lawyer doing a summation, or if you're like a politician giving a stump speech, but rarely does it happen in like, you know, a naturalistic comedy like Shrinking. So that they trusted me with that and gave me a speech like that, and that I got to give it to Lukita. It was really exciting and meant a lot. And it was one of those scenes that I looked forward to for a couple of weeks before I knew it was happening. And then I was sad when it was over.
The second season's about forgiveness, and watching Lukita Maxwell, who plays Alice, essentially forgive the character who killed her mom, because a lot of these stories are rooted in kernels of truth from my life and the writers' lives. I did not realize how impactful that would be to watch. And it stunned me how good they both were. And man, it was, I was really proud of even being a small part of it. I also think for people, because I like hitting comedy up too. Oh, and by the way, watching my wife, because I sometimes forget Christa Miller is my wife, and I don't forget she's my wife, but sometimes forget she's such a great actress, because I think she's the funniest chick on the face of the planet, and I could watch her do jokes all day. And she did some crazy acting this year. You know, she's really good when she gets to sink her teeth into dramatic stuff, and I really liked watching her deal with the repercussions of cheating a little bit on the character who I believe is playing me. And so I was also secretly mad about it. And then comedically, watching Michael Urie deliver a 3-page speech in one take about how he crossed paths with Brett Goldstein, and he does it twice during the year. I think they gave you an episode that you see him do it once, but man, that dude is a comedic force. As far as the most challenging, I will tell you the finale. I hadn't directed in a while because I'm lazy, and I directed the finale this year, and it was super challenging because, and I'm not going to do any spoilers, but the most poignant and ending scene, which has huge and high stakes, was shot at the Pasadena train station, and I'm easily frustrated as a director, and I did not calculate in my head that a train would come stop and pick up actual passengers every 4.5 minutes. So it was it's just a nightmare, but I think it ended up being pretty cool.
Yeah, we always conceived this as 3 seasons, and Bill has sort of this amazing, what we call galaxy brain, of being able to see this thing from 1,000 feet up and arc these characters and seasons. But I think what we're following are the stages of grief and recovery. And in season 1 was about grief itself. Season 2 is about forgiveness. And we have a theme for season 3 of just watching people continue the journey of getting better.
I hope Liz finds something that she's passionate about and makes her tick and can get back on track with her life. Bill never tells me any ideas. He ran one idea. He was like, would you mind if we touched on this? I was like, yeah, you can. He goes, okay, but that's like the most. I won't hear anything about it.
I think it's a really interesting question, and I have in my and now that you're asking, I realize I haven't really explored. I haven't let myself daydream about it. I think partially because I'm superstitious, but I also, anytime I had an idea of what might happen on our show, their idea blows it out of the water. The writers of the show are so clever and so ahead of us. They're so ahead of me, anyway, that anytime I think I might know best, I'm wrong. And they absolutely know best. So I don't really have any specific ideas. What I love is I love the language that they give me, you know, like a long scene or a long monologue. So I like the little things too. I like being a part of the show. I would be happy if I was just, you know, I had one funny line in a group scene in the first part of an episode and you didn't see me again. But when I have more to do and when I'm allowed to go to these more linguistic places, I really like those. And then when I get to go to the darker places, I have some really lovely stuff with Brett Goldstein this season that I'm really excited about, where you get to see Brian take care of other people. So often Brian needs to be taken care of. He shows up with a problem and he's a mess and people need to calm him down. But every once in a while, I think the show, you know, I think where this show lives best is when it's a scene and you're not sure who's the therapist and who's the patient. And sometimes when Brian gets to be the therapist, I find very rewarding.
As therapist, I think we're all on a hot streak.
Whoa, what are you wearing your sex boxes at work for, you little freak?
Dress for the job you want.
Wow, you better slow that down.
This is what I hate to come out of my office.
I think that Alice is worried about me.
It's rough to realize your kid knows how fragile you are.
Paul, do not do that. How are you so strong? I'm not fragile.
Why don't you try and stick to conventional therapy? Try and be normal.
You're not gonna start jimmying me?
Sorry, jimmying you?
You know, that weird therapy you do outside of the office that Paul hates?
Jimmying, though, huh?
Dear God.
I like that.
And that's our time.
It's just that it sounds like a movement or...
It's not your patient's job to heal you.
Push my husband off a cliff. I'm a psycho with good hair.
I like the good hair part.
Look whose self-esteem is back.
I can't stop thinking he's gonna go back to the way he was after Mom died.
If you don't truly deal with your past, it's gonna come back for you. And then, boom.
You okay? You have a bad dream?
Oh, that's how I clear my throat. Ah! There we go.
You can't spend your life hiding from your fear. Instead of running from it, say, bring it on.
That's it?
You want me to pull my pants down and make my ass clap?
How much do you pay him?
Nothing.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
We all hope that we're the kind of person who's gonna come through.
Something changed a few months ago. Felt like I got my dad back.
You might argue I don't have enough boundaries. Well, maybe you have too damn many. And we should be working together, like Batman and Robin. You can even be Batman. You already sound like him.
I'm gonna make you pay for that.
That's exactly what Batman would say.
The sky is blue, I've finally been dreaming of this for a while.
How are you and Alice doing?
We are doing great. Everything is back to normal.
Dad, who is this weird guy?
That's my patient, darling.
Who doesn't really want to be here because his issues stem from high school.
Everyone's issues stem from high school, Dan.